Good morning. It is Tuesday, November the 9th, 2021, and welcome to another edition of the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. Just how big for Black America was the passage of the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill? And stopping the cycle of violence. This and more this morning on the NNPA's Let It Be Known Live. And we start right now with our president and CEO, Dr. Benjamin F. Chavis Jr. Good morning, Dr. Chavis.
Good morning, Stacey Brown, and on behalf of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, Karen Carter Richards, our distinguished chair, publisher of the Forward Times newspaper in Houston, and all of the 230 African American owned newspapers across the country. We're glad to be on this special edition of Let It Be Known.
Yeah, Dr. Chavis, get to the headlines. DNC chair, the Democratic National Committee chair, Jamie Harrison, outlined just how important the bipartisan infrastructure bill that President Biden will sign this week is to Black America in particular. Jamie Harrison said for years, Black Americans heard talk but didn't see any action from Trump and Republicans who were unable to address critical community problems like lead leaching pipes, crumbling roads and bridges, and flooding streets. But now he says, thanks to President Biden, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act will address these monumental concerns while also advancing racial justice and equity through investments in communities of color. So they're touting this as a huge win for Black America, Dr. Chavis.
Well, it is. Again, President Biden, Vice President Harris, they're keeping their promises that they made. It was not for the Black vote. It was not for the Black vote. President Biden would not be in the White House. Vice President Kamala Harris would not be in the White House. So I think that what Jamie is saying, the new DNC chair, is accurate. And we were going to ask him now publicly to come on and let it be known so he can speak to Black America via the Black press, because there's the DNC now and the DCCC and the DSC, all of those committees now preparing for 2022. And we want to make sure that the Black press is given early consideration for 2022 to get out the vote. We all seen how important the Black vote was in New Jersey. Governor Murphy would have lost the election had it been for the Black vote. So now that the infrastructure bill is passed, you're right, Stacey, it is very significant for Black America in terms of jobs, in terms of access to broadband, and in terms of being involved in infrastructure. African American owned businesses, including the Black press, are going to benefit from the infrastructure bill.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Chavis, and here's something else. We hadn't planned to discuss this morning, but it's such an alarming story that it seems that no one's really covering. And of course, the Black press has to be on top of this as well, because it's not something to really be taken lightly. Arizona Representative Paul Gosar is facing criticism from his colleagues this morning after he tweeted a video that included altered animation showing him striking Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez with a sword. The video shows him also apparently set to attack President Biden with a weapon that appears to be either a club or a sword. Rep. Ocasio-Cortez called him out on Twitter last night. She referred to him as a creepy member that I work with. She said he shared a, quote, fantasy video of him killing me. Dr. Chavis, there is absolutely no reason why this representative is still serving, and there's no reason why he's not in prison right now.
Well, I think the House Ethics Committee is going to deal with him. There are rules about what members of Congress can do and cannot do. And this congressman from Arizona certainly has broken all of the House rules. And I knowing Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, they're not going to let him get away with it.
Yeah, it's just not receiving any attention either, which is really alarming that you can laugh. This is nothing to laugh off.
Well, it's the mainstream media.
Yeah.
They take lightly, even the way the media is covering the trial right now in Wisconsin or the trial in Georgia. It's very suspect. I'm talking about the mainstream media. And that's why the Black press, we're on the ground at the trial in Georgia and on the ground in the trial in Wisconsin, because we've got to make sure that our people get the truth, nothing but the truth.
Absolutely. Dr. Chavez, there's a program that started out in California. Devon Bogan, he's the executive director of Advanced Peace. And Advanced Peace is dedicated to ending cyclical and retaliatory gun violence in American urban neighborhoods. And they are doing an incredible job. Let's not get it twisted. This is not about defunding the police. This is about real community activism and really putting people where they need to be when it comes to law enforcement intervention. Let's bring on now Devon Bogan of Advanced Peace. He's the executive director of Advanced Peace. And also joining us this morning from the West Side Gazette, we have Bobby Henry, the publisher, and of course, Mr. Busby himself, Perry Busby, the columnist.
I'll just say welcome, Brother Bogan, and this is the legendary Bobby Henry.
Legendary, yes.
Legendary.
Wow.
And I will say that Bobby has taken that legendary status just a bit far this morning. He checked in late, Perry, and we gotta get on him about that.
You're right, Stacey.
Old man and new technology. You know how that works.
Well, Devon,
hey,
Brother Bogan, yes.
Gentlemen, good morning, gentlemen. It's good to be here.
Good morning.
First of all, tell our viewers, tell our publisher here, Bobby Henry, our columnist, Perry Busby, tell them about Advanced Peace. Give us a little overview, first of all.
Yeah, well, Advanced Peace, as you said, Stacey, we work to disrupt cyclical and retaliatory gun violence in impacted urban neighborhoods by providing transformational opportunities to those very individuals who are at the center of gun violence. A hallmark of our work is that we engage into what we think is a very prestigious 18-month, very intensive developmental healing-centered fellowship opportunity, active firearm offenders who have avoided law enforcement's reach. And it's important, I think, to understand that, you know, my disposition, the disposition of my organization, Advanced Peace, is that unless and until law enforcement can remove certain actors from the streets where they commit acts of firearm violence, we must have something else in the tool chest that helps us to help these individuals address those disruptive, destructive, harmful behaviors on their own. And we've got a demonstrated track record that what we do reduces gunfire within a 12 to 24 month period by 20+%. And that is something that our typical tool of law enforcement in this space isn't able to deliver.
Yeah, and you know, as an example, in 2009, for instance, the police department in Richmond, California, actually told you then that they had less than 30 men were responsible for 70% of the city's gun crime, which contributed to the city's less than flattering distinction of being ranked among the top 12 most dangerous cities in America. But since you guys have come in, that has changed, hasn't it?
Oh, it's changed significantly. Now, Stacey, 300 people were responsible for this negative activity. What we learned later, further digging and exploration and discovery, was yes, that it was less than 30 people. There were 4 things I learned very quickly that are very typical in our understanding today about how gun violence works in cities impacted by it. The first thing is that there are a relatively small group of people at the center of driving gun violence in a city. So in a city like, say, Chicago, which a lot of us like to talk about, albeit a large city, relatively speaking, a small group of individuals driving that gun violence. That's typical across the board in any city impacted by it. So it allows us to get really focused if we decide to get really focused on addressing the issue. The second thing that I learned is that those individuals who are driving gun violence will rarely suffer a criminal consequence for their suspected acts of gun violence. If you look at cities impacted by gun violence and you look at their prosecution closure rates, what you'll note is that many times they're under 50%. So that is 60-70% of the folks responsible for gun violence are never going to be arrested for the suspected acts of gunfire, which means they remain on the streets to either facilitate more habitual shooting, or they in fact become the victims of that very gun violence themselves. Third, most of these guys that are impacting gun violence don't want to be seen, heard. They want to remain anonymous. And they're often isolated and alone and disconnected from the mainstream social services platform. So we've got to create a structure and venues that allows us to meet them where they are and meet them as they are, because most of these guys aren't being engaged by any other public or community-based system of care. And as a result of that, fourth, that most public and community-based systems of care do not have the requisite capacity to actually engage these individuals in such a way that delivers an optimal outcome for those impacted communities.
Yeah, Bobby, Perry, I want you guys to jump in. And before you do, I just want to make a quick observation.
Did you see the hat?
Yeah.
Solidarity. It's called solidarity.
Look,
NNPA solidarity.
I love it.
Hey, Bobby, where's your hat, Bobby?
I feel slighted. Had I known the protocol, I would have brought mine out. Trust me, I got it. But I am moved, Brother Bogan, by what you're doing. A couple of things come to mind. We talked about the president and his new program, the New Deal. There's nothing new under the sun. If there could be incorporated in this New Deal by the president to include in addressing the gun violence, but then I thought too, no matter how good your program is, it doesn't matter if you don't have the proper people in it. So I'm not assuming, but I know that you got some nitty-gritty brothers involved in that who know how to deal with that situation. We cannot address situations unless we know about those situations. We don't need any Monday morning quarterbacks. We need some people to get right in there right now.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah, Bobby, you're right on point. And what we do, I think one of the other hallmarks of our approach is in those cities that we're in, we go in and we work to discover, explore, identify, and secure individuals from those very communities who oftentimes themselves have a common lived experience. They know the communities, they have a license to operate in the communities, but they've also done the developmental and healing work on themselves. That is, they can demonstrate that they don't have 1 foot in the game and still 1 foot out of the game. So it's important to identify, as you said, the right people on both sides of the coin. If you don't have the right folks from the community facilitating this work and don't have the right folks on the other side being provided the opportunity, you can do a lot of great things in those communities, but it won't equate to reductions in gunfire. And to the point of identifying the right folks to facilitate the work, you've got to make sure you're willing to make the proper investments in them, meaning that you want to make sure that you are training and developing, not only with regard to training in the strategy space itself, but the professional and personal development in terms of training and developing, so these individuals can be marketable beyond the space that they're working in at the present time. The other thing that we have to be willing to do is to be willing to compensate and put together compensation packages for these community violence interrupters. I mean, they are in these most violent, most hostile neighborhoods. They don't carry guns. They don't wear bulletproof vests. At best, they got great hats, great jackets, and great shirts to identify who they are. And we got to make sure that we're taking care of them because they're adding significant value to the healing and harm reduction that is taking place in these communities as a result of their work.
Yeah. Harry Busby, I know as a columnist down at the West Side Gazette, I know you got questions for Devon Bogan.
Oh, yes. Good morning, Devon. In your research, have you noticed a trend of in terms of the age being brought into this very destructive environment? Have you noticed that there's been more of a trend toward maybe the adolescents?
Yes.
Or and again, how are you approaching those? Because it becomes much delicate when you're dealing with an adolescent who's been taught some unbelievable things about gun violence, including the fact that it is a destructive tool.
Absolutely. So the answer is yes, Perry. We are. And let me say, the range typically is you've got 12-year-olds walking around with AK-47s in certain neighborhoods. So you will have that age up to 30 plus years old. And anyone that is an active firearm offender meets the criteria to become a fellow, no matter what their age is. The other thing is that most of these young men, as you know, I know I'm preaching to the choir, are black and brown, young men. So yes, we're seeing, however, in this day and time, a lot more 12 to 18, 18 to 24 year old young men in this space, perpetuating this kind of violence. And what it requires, folks, is it requires extreme courtship. Each of you all has courted someone in your lives, probably multiple people, right? And you know what it means to court, and you know what it means to be courted. So we have to apply and approach these individuals in a courtship, meaning we are doing everything in our power every single day to communicate to them in word and in action that your life is important. It is critically important that you be here in these communities to become healthy and productive residents in your neighborhoods. And in courting them, we're also helping them to understand that we have a very prestigious 18-month fellowship opportunity for them. So we have to go into explaining what a fellowship is and what makes it prestigious. But it does require that we are focused, unbelievably focused on the very individuals every single day, multiple times a day, on those individuals that we are trying to bring closer to enrolling into our fellowship opportunity.
And these fellowship opportunities, they come with a stipend.
They do.
They come with direction.
They do.
I know that it really helps that these young people they get the chance to see that we can do the right thing and even earn some money doing the right thing.
Absolutely. And so just very quickly, I mean, I'm trying to blow their freaking minds on life, gentlemen. I don't hold that back. I'm trying to put something in front of them that literally blows their mind on life. Because I understand this. The moment I decide that I want to live just a little bit, I begin to change my actions. I change who I hang out with. I change what I put in my body over time because I've decided I want to live. So I'm trying to blow these young men's minds on living and life. So yes, the wheel of our fellowship is an 18-month, every single day, multiple time a day, multiple people engagement with these individuals. Now think about that for a second. When was the last time you had somebody, outside of your community, outside your family home, that's engaging you with healthy, positive information every day, multiple times a day, by multiple people over an 18-month period? And I'm talking about even the weekends, even when it rains, even when it snows. 2, we're working to help them develop life maps, what we call a life management action plan. Most of these cats have never thought about living beyond today, living beyond the weekend. When they begin to think about that, and we begin to help sort of shape them beginning to think about setting and establishing goals and achieving those goals, no matter how small or large, they begin to develop a long-term life perspective. 3, we connect them to every viable social, recreational, spiritual resource that we have explored and determined that it is viable and can, in fact, support these individuals at a high level. 4, as you noted, Stacy, These young men, after 6 months of their 18-month fellowship, they can earn up to $1,000 a month going forward based on life map goal achievement. So I'm not paying people to stop shooting. I am incentivizing people on their life development goal achievement. I got an allowance when I was a kid. My children get allowances for doing stuff that they should actually be paying me to do for in my own house. You all know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's a middle class value. These young people have not had the opportunity to live and experience that. Why not? Everybody else is getting a bonus, getting some kind of incentive in the corporate environment. Why not? These are the most valuable individuals in our cities when it comes to public safety. Why not incentivize and support them for making better, healthier decisions that make development deals much more attractive in our cities? 5, we're taking them around the world. You know, it's hard to dream about some stuff you don't know exists. So we got to get them out of these communities so that they can see the world. And when we're traveling with these guys, we're meeting with VIPs like yourselves in the cities where we visit in this country, with groups of fellows who can travel together in this country. We're having some fun. They're eating well. They're staying well. They're visiting universities. They're walking around. They're seeing what's on those universities. And what's on those universities often create a situation by which they believe, I need to get back to that university. I need to start figuring out how I can get into college, something that they've never thought about. They're going to do a community service exercise, work with the elderly, feed the homeless, talk to some kids. They're going to do some restorative justice things that they can't do back at home. And that is, they're talking to families in these cities that they're not from, families who've lost their own children, family members to the similar kind of gun violence. They get a chance to hear the anger, fear, the pain, and even the hope. And then finally, here's a big part of our transformative travel. Try to imagine this. And this is something we've done all over the world. For those fellows who are willing and wanting to travel outside of this country or outside of their state of origin, they have to be willing to travel with someone they've been trying to kill and with someone who's been trying to kill them.
Wow.
And we've been all over, fellows have been all over the world. Try to imagine, Dr. Chavis, being in South Africa on Robben Island, in the prison that Nelson Mandela was in, being toured around that island and that prison by prison guards who were there with him, and by prisoners, political prisoners who were there, who themselves have reconciled that history and that past. And you're now here from Richmond, California, or from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, with somebody from a neighborhood in your city, and y'all been at each other's head, and you're now in that prison having a conversation about reconciliation with those guards and past political prisoners. And it's just an amazing kind of experience that we create around the world for these so-called rivals to come together. And what happens, because I don't want to oversell this, it's not kumbaya when they get back to the States, but it is, he's a human, I'm a human, and I can't kill this brother now that I've had this conversation and this experience with him. Can't hang out with him either because we got too much in our past. At least right now that can't happen, but I can't kill him. And if he's caught slipping in my neighborhood, I'm not going to allow him to be killed if I can help that. In fact, what we get from these guys is, man, I like this dude more than I like the cats I've been trying to kill him with. They come to a place of understanding that they're the same dude. They're right off the same assembly line, so to speak. Then we create an elder circle for them. I think it's important for our fellows to see men like yourselves, and for men like yourselves to be engaging with these kinds of individuals who've done the kinds of things that they've done in our communities. That intergenerational engagement on both sides of the coin is a fascinating engagement. And then finally, this is not a jobs program, folks. And although I know economic development and employment opportunities for our people in our communities is important, I'm going to tell you something that I learned very early in this space. Jobs don't stop shooting. I used to believe that nothing stops a bullet like a job until I met some killers who had jobs. right? And so I learned that that's not the issue. And so we can't continue to push this narrative. If we get these guys some jobs, they're going to stop shooting. No, that is not the narrative. We've got to push infrastructure that heals them, develops them, and helps them to come back to their original purpose. Then find them employment, vocational opportunities that actually mean something to them.
Wow. Well, let me tell you something. You got our attention. You got the publishers of the Black Press. Dr. Chavis, our chair, Karen Carter Richards, is watching, and she's saying that this is amazing. Cheryl Smith in Houston, Texas Metro News. She's giving her big ups to Mr. Bogan there. Jackie Hampton down in Mississippi. She says investing in neighborhood safety is such a worthy cause while offering positive alternatives to individuals on the wrong path. What an awesome program. Thank you. Dr. Chavis, you got the hat on too, so go ahead.
Well, again, I want to thank Brother Brogan for teaching us.
Right on.
Sharing with us.
Appreciate it.
There's nothing like getting the experience from the situation. And I think that your message, and this whole thing about the narrative, and that's why the Black Press is so important, Brother Bogan.
Yeah.
We need to help you spread the effectiveness.
Come on.
The transformative results of the narrative, of the strategy, of the love, of the self-respect. As you know, but a lot of stuff goes down in the hood because of perception of disrespect.
Come on.
If we can change disrespect to, oh yeah, I love you, you my brother, you my sister, I'm not going to never do nothing to you.
Come on.
And then put it in a global context about South Africa, or you could go the same thing in Jamaica, you could go to Brazil. Sometimes the enemies of our people feed us self-destruction. They want us to self-destroy. Socialization makes us not value our own lives.
Yes.
And when you don't value your own life, you're not going to value the life of somebody else. I just want to thank you on behalf of the Black Press. We're going to, Bobby and all the publishers that are on, we need to do something to spread this narrative because it's a truthful narrative. It's a transformative narrative.
Thank you. Absolutely. And Cheryl Smith, I agree with Cheryl Smith. She says every man should have one of those hats. Bobby, what you say about that, Bobby?
Absolutely. I got mine and I wear it. But if I can say this, and you know, God don't give you something and for you not to use it. Now, this is the truth. This morning about 4:30, I was awakened. And I was awakened by this. I'm gonna read what because I had to write it down. I was awakened by a horrible thought of someone being gang raped and sodomized in prison. Screams to live are muffled out by cries to die. How did they get there? On either side, the violent attackers and the prey. This is something that shook me to the core. And if those who are engaged in violent attacks of any kind, if they would envision the pain and the hurt and the degradation that has been caused by whatever precipitated that for them to get to that point, and we could make them realize that or come to that realization, then maybe we can find a way, Brother Bogan, to deal with what you're dealing with and meet them where they are and bring them where they should be. So how do we get your program here in Broward County, Florida?
So we should invite Bobby. We're going to invite Brother Bogan to our Midwinter conference. I'm sure the chair would agree with that. Well, you know, our publishers, we want to learn those programs, those strategies that work. And certainly, my man, hats off to you and hats on to you for creating a program that transforms lives. Like you say, not just for a day, but for the rest of their lives.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And our Midwinter Conference, by the way, Devon, is in January, begins January the 18th in Hollywood, Florida. And certainly we obviously will be in touch. This is so important. I think Bobby agrees. I think our chair probably agrees. And everyone else will agree. And this is the first time we've allowed our guests just to really be the host because you just took over the show.
Oh, man. Well, let me just say I appreciate this, guys. And just one last thing. I think it's important to note at least two things. One, this is not about, you know, defunding the police as you opened it with, Stacy. It's not. It's about acknowledging truth. That is to say, law enforcement, there's a lot of important roles for law enforcement to play. And obviously, there's a lot of work to be done in that space to improve what that looks like. But this is a space that over years and years, they have not performed well. And we have to be honest about that. That this is not what they do well. They don't solve gun crimes well, and they certainly don't keep our communities safer. In fact, by continuing to invest as we do in law enforcement could be in fact costing us community and public safety. And then two, look, we spend $30,000 a year on each of our fellows. That includes, personnel, operations, administration, evaluation, and all that stuff. $30,000 a year. And folks will say, well, that's an awful lot of money to be investing in people who should be in jail. And my answer is, well, it's working. And so we should be making these investments. But when you consider the cost associated with each time one of our fellows shoots and injures someone or shoots and kills someone, that's a $500,000 to $2.5 million cost per incident in those impacted cities. So let's do the math, let's be honest, and let's do what we know is right.
Yep. And just a quick thing, our chair, Karen Carter Richards, says, yes, indeed, she agrees, Dr. Chavis, that we should invite Devon Bogan to the Midwinter Conference. And our executive administrator of the NNPA, Claire Perry, does remind us it starts January 19th. And Mr. Bogan, just hang out a few minutes after we go off the air, okay, so you can exchange some information with our publishers and Dr. Chavis. Our Black fact of the day is that Allensworth is the first all-Black Californian township founded and financed by African Americans. Created by Lieutenant Colonel Allen Allensworth in 1908, the town was built with the intention of establishing a self-sufficient city where African Americans could live their lives free of racial prejudice. Our Black fact of the day, Allensworth, California, Lieutenant Colonel Allen Allensworth. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We will see you tomorrow.